Hello, and welcome to The Art of Aging, part of the Abundant Aging podcast series from United Church Homes. On this show, we look at what it means to age in America and in other places around the world with positive and empowering conversations that challenge, encourage, and inspire all to age with abundance. Today, I am very pleased to have Deval Patel with us from Lotus. And this is actually part of our Aging Innovators series, where we talk with entrepreneurs that have chosen to create new offerings and introduce new technology into the world of aging. And welcome to Deval.
Thank you. Pleasure being here, Mike. And it's an honor to be here. Love the podcast.
Well, thanks very much. And first of all, I just want to start off straight with Lotus. What is it? What are you working on?
Well, for people with limited mobility, like veterans, older adults, persons with disabilities, we've created a wearable ring that controlled objects at home by pointing. And unlike typical home tech like Alexa, there's no apps, no rewiring, no internet.
Okay, back up just a little bit here. So it's a ring.
Yeah.
And you wear it.
Yep.
And I guess you gesture with the ring and stuff happens.
Correct. So you can essentially go from home to smart home in seconds without the internet, without any apps, without any rewiring. And so the whole idea is you put on this ring, you can go around controlling the space around you. A lot of people tell us it's sort of like telekinesis, but of course there's science and engineering behind it.
Um, we're going to let you plug away at the end of this,
Sure.
but I mean, does it have to be just a ring? Can you put it into, I don't know, a watch or a banana or something?
Yeah, we can get into sort of why we designed it the way we did, but essentially part of the way we designed it, and my background is in human interface design, was we first interviewed people for 9 months. You know, the set of people I spoke about, this underserved, underrepresented community. And the feedback we got from them was, can you please make something that you don't have to look at while using, that you can use with one hand, and that it's very, very simple and very light and does not draw attention to them. Very subtle. And so that was the ring that was the reason that we came up with the ring form factor, because you can go to bed with it. It's small, it's subtle. People don't have to take it off, and you can use it with one hand.
And the device is paired with another device that would actually control the light or the TV or the things that people would want to control, right?
Correct. So we have the ring, and then we have these secondary systems. So you can have a switch cover. We're working on drapes and doors. And so you can attach these things magnetically to different things in your house, no rewiring. And then we use, just like your TV remote, we use infrared. So using that eliminates the need for apps, smartphone, and internet. All you have to do, just like your TV remote, is point and click.
I just want to go back to something. So I can finally live my childhood dream of having curtains that open and close by remote control.
Yes, that is indeed the goal. And not just that, I think that because it's infrared and it's everywhere, you can actually do it wherever you go. So if your friends and family visit you, you can do it, they can use it in your home and you can use it in their home. So it's what we call network advice, which is it's universal.
So I want to get back to this, but Deval, I want you to share more about your background, but I think I shared this with you earlier. You could have gone off and figured out a new sports drink, or you could have figured out, I don't know, new shoes or something like that, but something that's more commercial. You chose to devote this project to people with functional limitations, people that are at need. What led you to do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So by training, I'm a hardware engineer. So my expertise is in electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, applied physics, and math. Basically, I'm a nerd. And I love that. I actually lean into it, as you can
People have
tell.
called me that more than twice.
And I love that. I've very much always been a sort of science engineering person. And so my previous role was managing the engineering division at Apple. for iPhones, watches, and AirPods, Apple Watches and AirPods. And a couple of years ago, and so maybe to start off all the way back, I was born with misshaped knees. It's called bow legs. And so my legs weren't straight. And over the years, I've been on and off crutches. But the real journey starts one night a couple of years ago. I had just gotten into bed at the end of a long day, only to realize I'd forgotten to turn off the hallway light. But I was too exhausted, as you tend to be. I was too exhausted to climb out of bed, hop onto my crutches, hobble 10 feet, turn off the light, hobble back 10 feet, and get back into bed. So I slept with the lights on the entire night and woke up in the morning thinking, if someone like me, an engineer in big tech with expertise in wall electronics too, from Lutron, I'm from Apple with Lutron, an engineer. If I'm not even using smart home tech, who is? And initially it started out thinking, well, this is probably just a me issue. But it turned out that 91% of homes in the US were built before smart homes. But there's no easy way to upgrade them. And as much as that affects everyone, it disproportionately affects the 27 million Americans living with limited mobility. Veterans, older adults, persons with disabilities who can take up to 4 hours daily at home on self-care. And so that seemed like a problem worth solving. And then, there was a deeper reason too, which was I've been at Apple for about 8.5 years. And if you've seen Hamilton, the musical,
Yep.
I'm a big quotes person. There's this line from Hamilton I really like, which is, what is legacy? It's planting seeds in a garden you never get to see. And I was thinking, 30 years from now, I don't think I'm going to be telling my grandkids, hey, your granddad added the 8th camera in the smartphone. Interesting engineering puzzle. It's like,
Sorry. We might have 8 cameras, just as like we have 8 blades and a razor blade. Sure. Yeah.
Sure. Very interesting engineering puzzle, very cutting edge. It's a difficult challenge. It's not easy, but I'm not sure how meaningful. And so I wanted to work on something that was meaningful. And of course, given my own experiences and upon realizing the breadth and depth of the problem of how many people impacts and how much, this seemed like I wanted to make this my life's mission.
But I want to ask you a question. 2 things strike me about that. First of all, that you are not wedded to bleeding edge Internet of Things, smart home technology. I mean, and in fact, the technology that you created sort of backs into the use case about, just the everyday person is not going to have that. Right. And obviously we see a lot in the aging space about a really cool, new, amazing tech, but it just seems that it almost seems like you've just wanted to go for simplicity here, reliability, simplicity. How did that come about?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think definitely a huge credit for this goes to Apple. I mean, they train you in this design thinking methodology. I think the very first question is, does your device or idea deserve to exist? Which is, is it genuinely solving a problem? And how much is it solving it? Should it exist? Should you spend, 5-10 years of your life working on this? Should other people spend their time working on this? I think, should it even exist? And then if you've crossed that threshold, and even to convince yourself of that, the first thing to do is fall in love with the problem, not the solution. And, and again, credit to lots of people that came before me. This is me having learned from them. And it's essentially centered around what you would call the human-centered design process. And everything I'm describing are facets of that process. And so the first question is, have you spoken to the people? How much do you really understand the problem? Of course, you come at it from your perspective, but not everyone has the same lived experience. You want lived experiences, not something you're reading, something you talk to people, just talk to people. And second, you want a diverse set of lived experiences. You want to talk to a granddad, you want to talk to a young kid, you want to talk to a veteran, you want to talk to someone who's had a sports injury, you want to talk to someone who's had a stroke, someone who's just growing older, someone who has arthritis. You want to get the whole spectrum of lived experiences to test both the understanding of the problem and the solution.
I mean, there's so many directions we can go there. And I think, amongst the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast was really to explore this concept of human centered design. And I know that, when I have people coming at me, say that we got the greatest things to slice bread, they seem to say, hey, we can do 100 different things that can address your issue or problem. But it goes into my mind that, well, do I even know what my opportunity or problem is? And then how can you show that you've designed for me to address top things like a gut, right? I mean, I tend to find that people who have adopted human centered, and I'm still very much nascent in here, but my gut feeling is that, the UX tends to be a lot simpler, a lot more intuitive. Is that your feeling as well?
Oh, 100%. And not only do you end up with a better product, you end up with a better product that more people like to use or love to use because they've bought into it because you haven't spoken to them once. You keep talking to them as you continue building the product. They've tested it. They've given you feedback. So A, they have skin in the game. B, they have vested interest. That's something that is my Lotus ring. I helped design it. I gave them feedback. I spoke to the founder and the engineering team. They made that button the size that it is because I told them to do that, right? You're personally invested in the product, which is fantastic. That's all you want. What you don't want is a solution that someone's created in isolation and thrown over the fence with the hopes that someone will like it.
That's it. That's it. And you're also speaking to universal design principles here, right? Because you are addressing a need associated. First of all, it's hardware,
Right.
right? And then you're talking about the way that people engage and use that hardware. And I've got maybe two questions for you. You talked earlier about a diversity of people that you talk to. I mean, you talked with veterans, you've talked with sports injuries, you've talked kids, older adults. Are you looking for diversity or commonality? I mean, how do you find those nuggets that really say, "Wow, I am really understanding this problem now"?
Yeah. The way I think about it initially is you start off in the state of you don't know what you don't know. And all you're trying to do with the initial interviews, the user discovery process, is to go from there to I know what I don't know. There's still tons you don't know, but now at least you know what you don't know. So then you can start digging into it. So until we started talking to people, we didn't realize that in home daily activities were the bigger issue than out of home chores.
Okay. Yeah.
And now I know that that's something I don't know about, right? So it's very natural, but my next question tends to be, what are the daily home activities that you tend to have a pain point with? And then within that, then you go deeper. What's the underlying reason you're not able to do those activities? Why does it take you 4 hours every day to do your activities a day, right? Why does it take you 4 hours? And, once you drill down enough, in our case, we realized to do the basic things, you need lights, doors, and drapes. And so that's where we came last.
And also, I guess, what are they doing today to try to address this, right? And why is that not working?
Right. In fact, there's another good quote from Henry Ford, which is folks don't always, they understand their problem clearly, but they don't necessarily know what the solution to the problem may be because of course they're not engineers. Why would they? And in fact, and you don't have the opposite side, right? You might have a thought of a solution in your mind, but you don't have the problem statement clear. So Henry Ford's quote was, if I'd asked, I would have ended up making a faster horse. And so what you want is you want to combine the two. And I find the combination to be really more than the sum of the parts, which is you want a deep, deep, deep understanding of the problem, fall in love with the problem, not your solution, and then keep iterating with the team. And so something you mentioned resonates a lot, which is we ended up realizing that the combination of inclusive design and universal design would be the most powerful.
Mhm.
So the example of this would be, yes, it's a ring. Yes, it uses infrared, and that part doesn't change. It doesn't matter whether you're young or old. It doesn't matter, what your specific situation is. That is universal design. That that's the same. What is different is the inclusive design, where if you have a mobility limitation, or if you're deaf, or you don't have any disability, you're going to do point and click to control your space.
Right.
But if you have arthritis, you can wave and use gestures. So you don't have to do fine motor control. If you're paraplegic or quadriplegic and you can't, or you've had a stroke and you can't move your arm at all, then you can use your voice. That way, these are different inclusive modes of including different types of people in the same device so they can still get the same benefits. And so that's the combination of inclusive and universal design is most powerful. You don't leave anyone behind. You include everyone, but at the same time, you get the benefits of scalability with universal design because everyone can use it.
Well, yeah, well, that's the thing is, so it's almost, I mean, I remember seeing a documentary about, I think it was IBO, and they were designing garden clippers, and they were co-creating it with maintenance people because these are people that will be using the clippers the most. So if you design for that extreme, the middle kind of takes care of itself.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, the very common example in advocacy of this line of thinking is curb cuts.
Right.
Very simple example, right? Yes. Originally, you want to, you're probably thinking of people using wheelchairs, using curb cuts. But once you make that, everybody uses it. If you got a ton of, if you're on a bike, if you have a kid within a stroller,
If I'm rolling my luggage, yeah.
exactly, if you have luggage with you, it helps tons of situations. The other big example often closed captions or subtitles. It was originally created for people who were deaf back in the 70s. But, if you've ever watched Netflix or if you've ever watched a foreign movie or if you're watching TV at home and someone's asleep and you're trying to watch it at low volume, yeah, and you're keeping the subtitles on, or if it's a movie with an accent that you don't quite understand, it was not built for you, but you're benefiting from it. And that's the whole idea.
That's terrific. Hey, because you're concentrating in hardware and because of your history at Apple, I, I really, I really, I've been thinking about this asking, well, I've been thinking about asking you this for a while, but there's this concept of the product handshake, right? The way that a product feels, and that's famous with Apple,
Yeah.
and you just hold these things and they feel expensive and they feel quality and and you know, how do you look at that product handshake? Is there a philosophy there when you're actually designing the form factor itself?
Absolutely. So I think the first part is get the human experiences, bake in the lived experiences and as diverse as possible. That's part number one. Then once you've understood the problem and you've looped in the stakeholders into your solution, hey, what do you think? This is what we're thinking. What are your thoughts? How would this work? When you end up starting, so now I'm talking phase two. When you start engineering, we have a few design principles, and some of these, of course, come from Apple, my alma mater. There are two big principles that we take pride in. One is technology should appear when needed and disappear when not needed. We actually take pride in the fact that you don't even notice it's there. And if you actually see the best technology that you use, they're kind of just there and they show up when you need and they disappear when you don't. And you don't even spend time thinking about it. They just exist as part of your life. And so that's one big principle. The other is we want to make sure that it's extremely, extremely, extremely cognitively simple and physically simple. And both of those are very important. And in fact, using those principles is what led us down the path of where we are today, which is we're using old technology, I would argue.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This
It's
is,
been
yeah.
around for 30 years. Everyone in Internet of Things is chasing the internet part. But the funny thing, that happens when you try to use the internet is internet means you have to be connected to the network all the time, which means you need power all the time, which it turns out you need wires all the time because you need power all the time.
Mhm.
And so if you don't constrain yourselves to that and you just fall in love with the problem and you're saying my constraint is simplicity, that's how we led down. That's why we're using magnets and there's no rewiring. That's why we're using infrared. It's just point and shoot, no internet. And so that's how we led to this, because those are the two principles. You stay invisible when you don't need to be there, and you keep it simple.
Because that's really important, right? Because if we start getting to the ideation phase and the art of the possible, I mean, you're going to want to just really expand your thinking and come up with as many crazy solutions as possible, but you need those constraints, right?
Yeah. In fact, I think there's a really nice quote, and this one I don't remember as well, so I might mess it up. But true design, or the really best products, are born out of constraints. And it's just an idea or it's a research project, but the really best products are born out of constraints.
Right. Right. Um, yeah. So you have this sort of, you know, deep investigation, really get a good sense of the problem, lots of great expansive thinking in the possible, but really it comes down to the constraints because I guess, with your background, with researching with all these people, I guess there's deal breakers with the technology. There is factors that will increase decrease use. I mean, is it just instinctive or
No, actually, so you're touching upon a good part, which is probably, I would argue, the third part in the design process. So the first step is talk to people. So don't make assumptions, talk to them. Second part is design with these constraints in mind, whatever's
okay?
important to you. I would argue simplicity and focus helps more. The third part is prioritization. And that connects to the first two steps, usually the first one, which is, okay, now I know I want to make a ring. I know it should be without the internet. It should be very simple, no rewiring. There's 18 ways or 18 features I could add to it. And to be honest, before we started talking to folks, we had our own perceptions. We didn't think controlling TVs would be very important. It didn't seem that important. And as soon as we started talking to people, it kept coming up repeatedly, time after time. And, another example would be everyone kept asking us if it would be waterproof. And so that quickly became relevant, which is, hey, when you make something so simple and so easy that you don't have to take off because the battery life is 75 days, as opposed to most electronics, which you have to charge every night, people want to keep it on like their wedding rings. But then that means they're going to keep it on. They're going to use it in the shower. They're going to keep it on all the time when they're washing their hands, especially with COVID and post-COVID pandemic environments. So then they better be waterproof. And so very quickly, you need to, and you get to prioritize the important things up to the top, and everything else gradually waits. So our big focus was, we can do 15 things, but we're going to prioritize the lights, because you need them in the daytime with your blinds and at night with electric lights. And that is your baseline for everything. If you can't see, then it's much harder to do things. And so our focus was lights. Our focus was making sure it's point and shoot initially, because that's for most people, most of the time. Our focus ended up being, TV was low on our list, but after talking to people, it came very high up on the list, because that's one of the appliances people use almost every day for multiple hours in the day. And so anyway, the third step is prioritization, to your point, which is focus is your friend.
So I'm taking maybe two things here, and then I think we'll wrap up with our surprise questions for you that we hope make every guest go through. But this, there's a philosophical, or there seems to be maybe a chasm that you need to cross as an entrepreneur, and you've got this fantastic idea in your head, and then you try it out and people are telling you that your assumptions may not be what they were, or it's not as high a priority. And that can be, for some people, maybe difficult to do, right? Because you're so sure of this thing coming in and now you're getting new information. How do you adapt to that?
It's a good question. I think one part of it is just awareness. So if you go in with the expectation and that it's okay for people to tell you your baby's ugly, is the phrase that often gets used actually in the entrepreneurship world, which is go out and test it. That's okay. You're better off doing it now than spending 2 years of your life only to build something that nobody wants. That's worse. And so you're better off at the beginning when it's just an idea on the back of a napkin. You're much better off testing it there. That's the practical argument. The deep philosophical argument is, if you're truly wanting to help people, genuinely falling in love with the problem is more important anyway. Your solution will keep evolving. The first iPhone and current iPhone don't look anywhere near the same. First computer and the now computer don't look anywhere near the same. And so it's going to evolve, and it's a good thing. That's a great thing. It means that it's improving. It's
Yeah,
getting
well,
better.
to the point that now a first generation iPhone still wrapped in its box got sold for, I think, $50,000 at auction, right? Because people celebrate where it is today. Don't mean to tangent, but the second part of this is
And just to add to that, I would say the reason the philosophical argument is important is this is a Simon Sinek quote. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, is the quote, which is people don't do business with people who need what you want, do business with or work with people who believe what you believe. And that's why the why is very important, which is if your goal is really to help people, talk to people.
and that's not easy for everyone, you know? That's the second question. I mean, this whole process is like can seem so overwhelming, and, I'm a believer in that Kaizen principle where if you start small and build, and eventually you'll get somewhere, but I don't know, can you offer any advice for people that maybe wanna start this process, but they don't know where to start?
Yes, I guess I'll t- instead of advice, I'll tell you what worked for me. I don't know if I'm qualified to give advice per se, but I'll share my journey in the hopes that it'll help someone else. Don't worry about trying to find the right answer. Just begin. Just begin. And whatever your path is, walking is better than standing still. And you will gradually find the right direction. Even if you initially are walking in the wrong direction, you will ultimately, people will lead you down the right way, or you'll run into things and then you'll gradually direction correct and you'll go in the right way. So the first advice is just begin. If you know the playbook, you know that you're supposed to be talking to people, just talk. Maybe the initial couple of conversations won't go well, but ultimately it will. And so the other way to describe it is the only place to go is up
Sure.
because you're at the start. There's nothing to lose. And
Well,
so
and even if you've gone in that wrong direction, if you are in love with that problem, then just the joy of discovery should carry you into the next spot, right?
the joy of seeing your work helping the lives you're trying to help will lead you down the right path. The work itself and the people. Trust me, enough people are trying to do the right thing that they will lead you down the right path. There's that.
Yeah.
The practical argument is also if you keep people in the loop, they are bought in with you. You're not running a solo mission. Now you have everybody with you. Everyone's trying to help you. Everyone comes out of the woodwork. It's kind of amazing, really. When you mean to do well, how many people will go out of their way to help you? And so that's also the practical reason. So yes, it may seem scary. Yes, it might seem like it's a long journey. And yes, it may seem like a lot of work. But man, just beginning and trying to do the right thing will carry you most of the way there.
Amazing. Real quick, before we get into our ending questions, and I'll give you a chance to do this again, tell us where people can find you.
Oh, sure. Easy way is to go to our website. That's www.lotuslabs.org. That's LOTUS, like the flower, labs, LABS.org. And also my own email. Feel free to email me at deval@lotuslabs.com or lotuslabs.org. That's DHAVAL, Deval @lotuslabs.org.
Awesome. Well, we'll hit that at the end. So, okay, here's our ending questions. So, one thing we like to do at the end of our podcast is to ask our guests three questions about their own perspectives on aging. And we do this with you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, question number one: when you think about how you've aged, what do you think has changed about you or grown with you that you really like about yourself?
Yeah, I would say the change in priorities has been one that I've welcomed. I'll give you the more tangible answer, which was I started spending a lot more time thinking of the purpose of my life. And that was a tough question. It took me a few years to, I'm not claiming I have the answer, but I have an answer. And the answer for me was, and this is something I'm proud of because now everything I do falls in line with this, which is there's two purposes of at least my life. One, the purpose of life is to live it, which is just spend time with people you love, doing things you love, right? Just live it. And the second is spend your time doing something meaningful, right? I mean, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, 70 years from now, the two things you're not going to be doing, and that this is the way I came to this conclusion is the two things you won't be doing is, you know, in my final years, I don't think I'm going to be spending time wishing, oh, I wish I spent 4 more hours at the office earning another $100. I don't think that's going to be the case. And I'm certainly not going to be the case where even if I've helped a ton of people, if I'm not, spending time with loved ones, that's maybe not, I don't know if I would have said I have led a purposeful life because I didn't have anyone to, share that with. And so everything I do now falls in those two categories, which is live life, spend time doing things you love with people you love, tends to be the personal side. And then the professional side tends to be spend time working on things you find meaningful, whatever that means to you. And that often is whatever your own skill or your talent or your ability and your strong suit tends to be in. For me, it's science and engineering. That's how I want to help people. I want to build something that continues helping people even after I'm gone. Hence Lotus, hence the quote from Hamilton. And so for me, that's more meaningful. And I want to spend the rest of my life doing that.
It's awesome. Okay, question number two. What has surprised you most about you as you've aged?
This is a bit funny. So two things, maybe one that ties to the previous question and one now. The silly answer is, when I was just coming out of college, money was everything. You're broke as a college student, have no money. Everything was around money. How can I earn the most and have this massive, retirement money or nest egg or what have you? Very quickly that gets old. as soon as you're able to kind of cover your basic requirements, that quickly stops being a motivating factor. I think the other thing that's changed over time, also kind of happy about, is I almost take pride in acknowledging the things I don't know but want to learn, or the things I'm not good at and want to learn. Like I almost emphasize that more, saying, okay, these are my strengths, but these are all my weaknesses. And wouldn't it be great if I spent the next 4 years, 5 years learning about all these things? Like a very tangible example was when I was at Apple. One of the big reasons when I decided to leave professionally, my big goal was I could spend the next 10 or 20 years of my life at Apple or my career at Apple, and I would still just be an engineer. But wouldn't it be amazing if I left Apple and learned everything that was non-engineering related about sales, marketing, entrepreneurship, go to market, fundraising, financing. Of course, I'm describing all career things, but I was taking more pride in all the things I did not know, but could learn if I just put my mind to it. And so I think that's one of the things that's happened over time, which is I almost take pride in all the things I'm not good at, but could be if I spend time learning it.
Well, that just reflects just maybe the growth in self-confidence you've had, the experience you've had, and the successes, and even the failures, and what you've learned, and your sense of personal growth. That's an amazing sentiment. I'm so glad that you shared that. Number three, is there someone that you've met or worked with in someone in your life that has set a good example for you in aging? We call it, aging abundantly, but it means different things to different people. But I'm just going to throw that to you as a marker. But does anybody come to mind?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. There's many people that come to mind right now. I'm going to try and pick one. One category tends to be mentors. If you've read the Odyssey, there's this beautiful sentiment, which is mentor is the union of path and goal. Just you want to just get to where they got to. You want to have walked their path. And those are the best mentors. They're the union of path and goal. That's one category, folks. I'll focus on someone closer to home, which is, I think, my dad. And I think the thing I love most about him, he's a good balance of everything. But the thing I love most about how he is aged, if he were answering these questions, is age has never been a criteria for him to decide whether or not he could or should do anything, which is quite amazing. He got his MBA at the age of 55 or 60. He was in class with students who were 25 and he loved every minute of it. It was amazing. And he's gone on to get other degrees since. Yeah, there's just no notion. I think he is truly the personification of your mind and heart is where it's all at. And when I think of aging abundantly, he is what comes to mind because he sort of has the energy and vigor of what you would potentially could associate with youth. But then he embodies that even at, he's over 70 now and he's still going in, he's trying to get his new certification on, he's an architect. And so he's trying to get new certifications and everything. And so I guess the short answer is for me, he is that mentor. He's the union of path and goal. I want to have walked his shoes and get to where he's been, no matter the age. And I truly believe he's an embodiment of having aged abundant.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a terrific place to end it. Deval, thank you so much for being generous with your time. There's just so much good stuff here. We could talk for hours and hope to have the opportunity to do again sometime. But for you, our listeners, I want to thank you for listening to this episode of The Art of Aging. It's part of the Abundant Aging podcast series from United Church Homes. And we want to hear from you. What's changed about you as you've aged that you love? What has surprised you most? How do you define abundant aging? And who's your abundant aging hero? Visit us at abundantagingpodcast.com to share your ideas. You can also give us feedback when you visit the Ruth Frost Parker Center website at unitedchurchhomes/Parker-Center. We have a wonderful annual symposium coming up in October that you should check out. And Deval, again, where can people find you?
My website or email. So Deval, DHAVAL at lotuslabs.org, or go to the website, www.lotuslabs, LOTUSLABS.org. Would love to connect with anyone. And Mike, thank you so much again for having me. This was the honor and privilege was mine. Thank you.
That's awesome. Great. All right, everyone, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.